policy issues in the energy sector, and particularly related to renewable energy transition challenges and problems. So, and I have always tried, like as he has mentioned, that I was the chief architect of the Rajasthan new solar energy policy and Rajasthan wind, hybrid and storage energy policy. There are two policies, but I was not the chief architect. I took help of a lot of consultants like you. PwC was there, KPMG was there. Then we had quite a few rounds along with the industry also, with the officers of the department, the power sector state companies like generation, distribution and transmission. We had a lot of discussions. We worked for around, say, more than 3-4 months. And then we came out the draft policy, and then we finalized the policy. It was approved by the cabinet, and it has certainly got a very good response from the investor community, particularly with regard to the utility scale power plants. As Mr. A.K. Gupta, he is currently advisor to the government on the energy related issues, he was also mentioning that as far as the utility scale investments are concerned, so now everything is like quite well settled, but problems lie somewhere else. So it is always important to understand why. So my first point is that why public policy? So it is not only policy, it is always public policy. Why public policy is needed in any sector for that matter. So that should be the first idea whenever we start framing or drafting any policy. And when government announces a policy, then why we should have? Like government doesn't have a policy that we should have 100 number of restaurants or 200 number of cinema theaters in any city. Or for that matter, like we should have 20 recreation parks in the state, in 33 districts. Government doesn't have a policy like that. Government has a policy to promote them. So fixing the targets and determining the policy objectives. So that key thing basically starts from that, why you should have a public policy at all. So when we talk about renewable energy sector, so public policy is needed when the free markets or market is not able to address the issues or the challenges in the sector, like health, for example. So if you leave health sector completely to the private markets, then it will be very difficult for a poor person or a disadvantaged family or a marginalized household to get access to good health services. They have to be affordable also. So government has a public policy in the health sector that we will open the hospitals, we'll open new hospitals, we'll open sub-centers, we'll come out with a health insurance scheme or free medicine scheme, and we'll expand our network. And simultaneously, the private sector will also work. There would be private hospitals, there would be good private research health institutions. So public policy is always framed with something in mind that I have to address some issue, some problem. That is the whole idea. So sometimes our policy objectives go haywire. We end up in doing something or spending public resources, government funds on issues where government is not required to intervene as such. So the sector diagnostics is very essential of any sector. Like I have given an example of the health sector. Similarly, you can talk about the education sector also. So government has a role to play in the education sector. Private sector is also there. But government works in a different mode and manner. Priorities of government are different than the private education institutions. So understanding what are the problems is essential. So now if we talk about like energy sector, as we are talking about the renewable energy transition, there is a very deep policy conundrum. There is a surprise, and there is like, we do not know many of things. What are the issues going on? Everyone is ready to do everything. Investor says, when I was chairman Renewable Energy Corporation in the state, so investors would say and come, I want to make investment for 1,000 megawatts. I want to make investment for 10,000 megawatts. So another day, you'll get a feedback or feeler or a request from some investor that he wants to make an investment. Government is always ready that we are eager to accept your investment. Yes, please come and invest in Rajasthan. Departmental officers are also upbeat. Yes, there is a positive environment as regard to investment in the renewable energy sector in the state. Things happen, but they do not happen sometimes as per our expectations or as per the exact potential which we can tap. So there is some problem. So understanding that after understanding that problem, we finally try to freeze out few things that where in this particular sector or the current scenario, which is different for each state. So I mentioned here that it is unique to each country, but it is different for each state. So at what all points government wants to intervene, so that we have to identify. We don't like in the utility scale sector. If an investor or a businessman or entrepreneur is wanting to invest, like say 2,000 crore rupees, government doesn't have to worry about from where he will rope in the finances, from where the borrowings would come. Sarkar ko nahi chinta karna, from where the capital would come, because the whole sector has become so much robust. Money is automatically flowing, so government has to keep itself out of it. But government has some, like for evacuation purposes, then government has a very strong role. Government should be focusing more on that. So why government needs to intervene in the sector? Then in what manner and how much? Because there is a limitation to that also. Because then there are other counter forces, or there are other parties or stakeholders which get impacted. Like in this case, I think, and I am sure that advisor to the government would be talking about the problems which the state power companies face because of the increased integration or injection of renewable energy, because it comes along with its own problems. So then how much government has to intervene? That also we have to decide. And these all things particularly become so, but let me come to the point number C first. And when we talk about energy systems, as per my understanding, are very complex. They appear to be very simple. But when we talk about energy systems, not about electricity as such, the energy which is flowing through the wires, but energy sector as a whole, it is a very complex system. There are deep interlinkages. There are a lot of intricacies that how we live, how we consume energy, how the society is developing, what is your social structure, how economy is growing, how urbanization is happening, how population is growing, how much is the inequality there among different sections of the society, which sector of the economy is growing more, whether manufacturing is increasing. And particularly like when you start talking about make in India or production linked incentive, then that means the manufacturing sector is going to grow at a very high pace in coming decade or so. So then it becomes entirely a different kind of scenario, because even today, lot of industries have very high direct consumption of direct primary energy. They use a lot of coal, they use a lot of oil. So only like translating the electricity part of the energy sector into renewable energy and saying that we'll be in a position to solve the future problems or to achieve the targets by 2050 or 45, I think it would be quite naive unless we understand the whole sector in totality. So energy systems are very complex, and environment certainly has a huge role to play into it. And there are certain parts in the energy system where you cannot transition to electricity. For times to come, I have been always saying that for times to come, maybe for at least another 30, 40 years, we will be banking upon non-electric form of energy. I am not saying the word fossil energy. I don't know if it is the right word or not. I coined it yesterday only. So non-electric energy. So like industries which require high heat intensity, like steel industry or maybe the cement industry or glass industry. So it requires high heat intensity. Renewable energy cannot provide high heat intensity to such kind of industries, or maybe to heavy, long transportation logistic network or infrastructure. So you cannot work on electric vehicles, the battery operated storage things. Then you have to start thinking about biofuels and not